Hi, in this demo I want to show you how to create a new empty application using nib files. As I said, we're not going to spend a great deal of time on nib files, but when they are appropriate, you'll need to know how to do them. So we're going to start with File, New, Project. We're going to start with File, New, and then go to Project. And I'll just choose the empty application template here. I'll click Next. And I'm just going to call it Nib Demo. That's where you'll find it. And everything else is the same. It's an iPhone and so on and so forth. So now we click Next, and we'll save it where we're going to keep it. And here we go. So now you'll notice something here. In the deployment info, there is a main interface section that right now contains nothing. This is because the main interface is not yet defined. This is an empty application. We also have the single app delegate class here, but we don't have anything else. So the first thing we need to do is create a new view controller. So we're going to right-click here and just go to New File and select ObjectiveC class. And if we click Next, if we select the subclass of UI view controller, which is what we're doing, it has an option with nib for user interface. We can either define our nib here, or we can define it later. We're just going to define our nib here, and it will give it the same name as the name of the class that we give it. Here we've called this view controller. So I'm just going to click Next. Let me do that. We'll reset that. So I'm just going to click Next and save it here in our bundle. So now we can see that we've got a view controller H, a view controller M, and a view controller.zib. So here is our view controller.zib. We see that we have a single view, and there's something here called files owner, and files owner over here is the class view controller. Now, if we set up our zib separately, we must identify who the files owner is. In other words, what the view controller is for this nib. Also, under Files Owner's property window, if we right-click Files Owner, we'll see that View is wired up already to this view, and that's a good thing. If we do it by hand, if we make a new empty nib, for instance, then we must wire this by hand. Okay, so now all that remains, let's do something with this view. For now, let's just make it a color, so that we know it's that view that gets loaded. So we've got a nice blue color here. Okay, and now we'll just save that. And in the app delegate now, we must do some things. We notice that this app delegate looks different than a storyboards app delegate. This is because the window has to be loaded. So we've seen that self.window is a UI window instance. UI window is a subclass of UI view. It's allocated and then initialized with a frame that is the size of the main screen's bounds. And we haven't talked about frames and bounds yet, but that's what that means. So self.window.background color then is set to white color. Background color is a property of the view. Now we need to get this view controller's view to be displayed in the window. In order to do that, we must import the view controller. So let's go ahead and do that. Import and then viewcontroller.h, and there we go. Now, if we import it, and we're going to display it in the window, or its view in the window, we need to make a property of it. So, property, and again, just like the window, strong, non-atomic, and then it is a view controller instance, and we'll just call it view controller. Why not? There we go, and we'll save that. Now, in our implementation of the app delegate, we'll need to instantiate that view controller. So we can say self.viewController is equal to, and there's a special init method that we need to use when we use Nib Names. So it's going to be the view controller allocated, and then init with Nib Name bundle. Now the Nib Name has already been specified in the zib file. By virtue of the fact that this file's owner's class is view controller, and the file's owner's view property is the view, the nib name is already there. It's in the code, and when it gets compiled, it'll have a default nib, which is viewcontroller.zib. And that's because these things are set up here in Interface Builder. So we can say, take the default, which is the same thing as saying init with nib name nil. And we can also, for the bundle, say bundle nil, which says this bundle. No special bundle, this application's bundle. So now we'll put a semicolon after that. And now we've initialized or instantiated our view controller. Now we need to set the Windows view to be this view controller's view. Well, we can do that a couple of ways. But since iOS version 6, Windows need to be born with what is called a root view controller. Otherwise, it'll give us a warning when we fire up the app. So we'll do it this way. self.window.rootViewController is equal to self.viewController. Okay, so that takes our new view controller and its view and makes it the root view controller of the window. Then the Windows background color is set. This really doesn't matter anymore because we'll never see the Windows background color. And then finally, the method makeKey and visible is called on window to make it visible, first of all, and to make it the key window. In other words, the window that is being displayed. So the window is a view. It has a root view controller, which is our view controller object, and that view controller contains a view. So when the Windows root view controller is self.viewController, then self.viewController will be displayed. So now when we fire up the app, we've got a nib file being displayed as the view of the window that is up here. So we can see that we got that nib file, and it is blue, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's all working. From this point on, it's going to be the same. In other words, as we have outlet properties and action methods with controls on our view, it will be the same as what we do from here on out with storyboards. I wanted to cover nib files because very occasionally, very rarely, they are preferable to using storyboards. For the rest of the course, however, we're going to be talking exclusively about storyboards. But remember that after this point, everything that applies to storyboards applies to nib files. The only difference after this point is that when we look in Interface Builder, we will see with nib files just a single view at a time. In other words, one nib file represents one view and its view controller. Whereas with storyboards, we will see potentially all of the views and view controllers in our applications and the interactions between them. Thank you very much.